The sound of a perfect shot echoed through the elite shooters club, followed by thunderous applause from wealthy patrons dressed in designer shooting gear. Blake Radcliffe lowered his custom Remington, a smirk spreading across his tan face as the target showed another bullseye. This was his kingdom, a world where money, power, and skill created an impenetrable barrier between the elite and everyone else. If you've ever been underestimated or made to feel invisible, you might want to stay for what happened next, the moment that changed everything. At America's most prestigious shooting range, Emma Miller stood near the entrance, clutching her worn leather purse, her simple blue cardigan and department store jeans making her stick out like a dandelion in a rose garden. At 35, she was neither young enough to turn heads nor successful enough to command respect in this circle. The receptionist, a young woman with immaculate blonde hair and a practiced smile, looked up, then immediately backed down, as though Emma were merely a distraction. "Excuse me," Emma said softly. "I'd like to register for today's open practice session." The receptionist glanced up again, this time allowing her gaze to travel from Emma's sensible shoes to her simple ponytail. "Membership cards only," she replied dismissively. Emma took a deep breath, pulling out a crinkled envelope. "I have a day pass." It was a gift. Blake noticed the newcomer from across the room. At 42, he was at the peak of his career, 5-time national champion, Olympic gold medalist, and the face of Remington's premium line. His family's oil fortune had given him access to the best training since childhood, and his natural talent had done the rest. Well, Blake drawled loudly. "Looks like someone took a wrong turn on the way to Walmart." His companions laughed on cue, drawing more attention to Emma, who was making her way to the basic range, eyes fixed on the floor. Rebecca Johnson, the club's manager and a former competitive shooter herself, frowned at Blake's comment, but said nothing. Emma found a spot at the far end of the basic range. She carefully placed her purse on the small shelf and withdrew a cloth-wrapped package. With practiced movements, she unfolded the material to reveal a standard Glock 19, serviceable, but nothing like the custom pieces the club members wielded. Blake and his friends had migrated closer, their interest piqued by the opportunity for entertainment. $10 says she can't hit the target, one joked. Blake scoffed. "Make it $10,000. I bet she's never held a gun in her life." Blake sauntered over to Emma's station. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, his false politeness dripping with condescension. "Are you sure you're in the right place? This isn't a knitting circle." Emma finally looked up, her hazel eyes meeting Blake's blue ones with a steadiness that momentarily threw him off balance. "I'm just here to practice," she said quietly. Blake recovered quickly. "Practice, honey, this is a place for serious shooters. $10,000 says you can't hit the bullseye from 50 yards. Emma's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. "I don't have that kind of money," she replied. Blake's smile widened. "If by some miracle you make the shot, I pay. If you miss, you leave and never come back. Deal?" Rebecca had approached during the exchange, concern evident. "Mr. Radcliffe, perhaps we should let our guest practice in peace." Blake waved her off without looking. "Stay out of this, Rebecca. We're just having a friendly wager." Emma's gaze dropped to her left hand, where a simple gold band encircled her ring finger. She twisted at once, a gesture so small that only the most observant would have noticed. "All right," she said quietly. Blake's eyebrows shot up in surprise before his face settled into a triumphant smirk. "Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves a show." No one noticed the change in Emma's posture as she picked up her Glock, her spine straightening, shoulders relaxing, feet shifting into a perfectly balanced stance. No one recognized the expert grip and the controlled breathing pattern. And no one realized that the simple gold ring on her finger once belonged to one of the most legendary snipers in SEAL Team 6 history. 3 years earlier, Emma had stood under a gray April sky, the crisp snap of the Honor Guard's rifles cutting through the solemn silence of Arlington National Cemetery. The folded American flag pressed against her chest felt impossibly heavy as she watched her husband's casket being lowered into the ground. Master Chief Nathan Miller had served his country for 15 years, his exceptional skills as a sniper earning him both medals and the respectful nickname the Ghost among his peers. The official report cited a helicopter crash during a classified mission. Emma knew better. There were aspects of Nathan's death that would remain redacted forever. They had met in Burlington, Vermont, where Nathan was visiting a fellow SEAL recovering from injuries. Emma was working as an accountant, her life as predictable as the numbers she managed daily. Their meeting at a downtown coffee shop stretched from apologies into hours of talking. They married just 6 months later in a small ceremony attended by a few friends and Nathan's fellow operators with vigilant eyes. Life as a SEAL's wife had taught Emma to live with absence and uncertainty. Nathan would disappear for weeks or months, returning with new scars he wouldn't explain and nightmares he couldn't share. "I wish I could tell you everything," he would say, tracing her cheekbone with his calloused thumb. "But I can tell you this. You're the reason I fight to come home." It was during one extended period stateside, after a harrowing mission that had left Nathan with a ligament tear in his knee, that he first took Emma to a shooting range. "If I'm going to be away so much," he had explained, adjusting her stance with gentle hands, "I want to know you can protect yourself." What began as a safety measure evolved into something more, a shared activity that gave Emma insight into her husband's world. Nathan turned out to be a patient instructor, and Emma, an unexpectedly gifted student. "You're a natural," he'd whispered the first time she hit a bullseye. "You've got the 3 things that make a great shooter: steady hands, perfect vision, and the ability to stay calm under pressure." Over the next 3 years, whenever Nathan was home, they would practice together. He taught her everything: proper stance, breathing control, sight alignment, trigger discipline. "Shooting isn't about aggression," he would explain. "It's about absolute control over your body, your breath, your fear." Emma absorbed every lesson, finding unexpected peace in the ritual. Those sessions at the range were sacred, moments of connection that didn't require words. Sometimes his SEAL teammates would join them. "Boss never shuts up about your progress," one of them, Michael Reeves, had confided. "Says, you're a better natural shot than half the guys he's trained." The last time they went shooting together was 2 days before he left for his final mission. Nathan had been unusually quiet, more focused on watching Emma than improving his own shots. "Promise me something," he said, his voice rough against her ear. "Promise me you'll keep practicing even when I'm not here." Emma had nodded, not understanding the gravity behind his request. After the funeral, Emma couldn't bring herself to visit a range. Nathan's guns remained locked in their safe, untouched. She moved to Boston for a fresh start, taking a position at a corporate accounting firm where no one knew her as the widow of a fallen SEAL, until last week, when a package arrived from Michael Reeves containing a day pass to the Elite Shooters Club and a handwritten note. "Nathan would want you to keep your promise. 3 years is long enough to grieve alone. Come back to the living, Emma." Now standing in the Elite Shooters Club with Blake Radcliffe's challenge hanging in the air, Emma felt something stir within her, a spark of the person she had been before grief hollowed her out. As she lifted the Glock, muscle memory took over. The world narrowed to 3 points: herself, the gun, and the target. Emma took a deep breath, held it for a moment, then slowly exhaled halfway, and squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out, crisp and clean in the hushed range. Through the settling echo, the mechanical whir of the target retrieval system seemed unnaturally loud. Blake maintained his amused expression, though uncertainty crossed his features as he noted Emma's textbook stance. The target moved slowly toward them, building suspense with each mechanical click. When the paper target finally arrived, a perfect hole marked the dead center of the bullseye. The silence that followed was profound, a vacuum of sound where Blake and his entourage struggled to process what they were seeing. Emma calmly placed the Glock on the counter, her expression unchanged. Blake snatched the target, examining it closely. "Beginner's luck," he finally declared, his voice carrying a sharp edge. "Anyone can get lucky once." Rebecca stepped forward, her professional mask slipping to reveal genuine admiration. "That was an